so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness which creates and animates all things. After years of exploring this awe-inspiring truth on this podcast, I'm super excited to announce that we are now going even deeper down the rabbit hole on the new late-night style consciousness-elevating talk show called Optimistic, which features none other than you, the listeners. Optimistic is taped out of the epic, spaceship-esque 8-bedroom property we call the Mystic Manor that myself and the rest of the Optimistic crew now navigate reality from in Venice Beach, California. And you are invited to come experience a Mystic Manor immersion week with us. During your week-long stay, you'll enjoy unique workshops, chef-prepared meals, one-on-one time coaching and consulting with me, and even co-creating magic with me as a guest on both Optimistic and an episode of the Positive Head podcast. When I started this, my aim with these immersive retreats was to facilitate the ultimate spiritual upgrade and tune-up, so to speak, for our guests while providing them with one of the most memorable experiences of their lives. And I'm happy to say that as of this recording, every guest at the end of their trip so far has told me that they have had a profound and transformational experience at the Mystic Manor and that they definitely want to come back. All that being said, we only have a limited number of spots available between now and next July. And as of this recording, about half of those spots are already filled. So if there's any part of you that is screaming, yes, I want to come, I feel like I need to be there, go now and book a slot with me to discuss how we can put our heads together and make it happen at calendly.com/talkwithbrandon. I know for some people, there is also that little voice in their head saying, why not? I can't get off work. I can't afford it, and on and on and on. But, really, Henry Ford, I think, said it best. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And I'm confident that where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm personally committed to doing everything in my power, including discounts and payment plans, to get you here if it is something that truly feels like a huge yes for you energetically and like you're meant to be here. Once again, the link to book time to discuss with me is calendly.com/talkwithbrandon. That's spelled calendly.com/talkwithbrandon. All one word, of course. And book in some time and look forward to seeing you soon here at the Mystic Manor. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Mira Kelley here with me on the show. Mira is a teacher, author, and well-known past life regression practitioner who has helped thousands peer beyond the veil to understand the broader view of their soul's journey. Hello, Mira. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, Brandon. It's such a joy to be with you.
Oh, it's so wonderful to have you here. This is such a fun and exciting, conversation path to go down today. I know everyone out there's ears are perked up ooh, past life, specialist, someone who has seen, all the past lives, parallel lives, future lives. That's just such a fascinating topic to, I feel like, everyone. So I'm excited. And I know you have a lot to share above and beyond that. So I'm excited to explore with you today. And I'd like to start with the same opening question I always start with. And that is this. You're in an elevator. You have 10 floors to answer. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" What do you say?
Changing people's lives and empowering them to their greatness.
I like the sound of that. You got nine.
I think I did on one floor. Yes.
Sometimes people give me the Willy Wonka answer, I call it, where, you're in the elevator shooting into the cosmos and it goes like 5 minutes. I'm like, that's a very slow elevator, or we are now in the, drifting in the atmosphere. So I guess it all balances out in the end.
It always does. My work came into this world through the field of past life regression, and it all came together because I was able to heal a physical condition I personally had, and so that got me really curious. I knew through my own experience that the modality is extraordinarily powerful to unlock us, to help us understand, to see the soul's path that we are on, to see the connections we share with other people, to understand why the physical problems, to give us guidance on how to move forward. And so I was hooked. I knew that this modality, this path of using past life regression to make the present life our best possible life yet, really works. And so I began working with people. At that time when all of this was happening for me, I was actually working as an attorney in a large law firm in New York City. And right? How different. And then I transitioned into doing what I do. And a big moment for me was when I worked with Dr. Wayne Dyer. I was instrumental.
One of my all-time favorites.
Was he? Is he? Yeah.
Yeah, he's right up there as my biggest inspirations. I just love Dr. Dyer's work.
One of the things that he taught me was this idea of having a big and powerful voice. And so it doesn't surprise me that wherever I go, I meet people who tell me I have been so deeply impacted by his work because, he stepped up as a teacher who paved the way for so many of us, right?
For sure.
And so he also blessed me with his with his presence, with his mentorship in my life. I was instrumental in him healing from his leukemia, and he spoke about me in his book Wishes Fulfilled, and then on every stage he was on, and every interview and so forth from there on. And so I was really blessed to have an extraordinary opportunity right from the get-go to impact people in a huge meaningful way. And so over the past few years, a lot of years by now, I have been, truly transforming lives and being on the leading edge of consciousness. And it's been magical. So that was my going into the stratosphere introduction. How about that?
You made up for it. Fair enough. Yes. I love that. Yes. Well, so maybe you could give a little, of the backstory that led you from, Bulgaria originally, if I recall, and then, to a law firm, to this work. Like, I'm really curious, and I know the listeners are curious about how that journey unfolded for you.
When you said those stages, right? Bulgaria law firm, what I do right now with my current work, it truly sounded to me like lives, like I've been through quite a few lives in this life already, right? And has that not been the case for so many of us, right?
For sure.
And so I was born in Bulgaria during the final years of communism. And so I didn't grow up with any spiritual concepts. There was no celebration of religious holidays. None of that was present in my upbringing. And so when the political regime changed, all of a sudden this country, the people were so starved for their soul connection that there was such a, for connection with the divine, that there was such an influx of everything possibly imaginable, right? In terms of spiritual information. And so I remember my uncle was speaking about a book that he had read on past lives. And at that time, I was 13. It was such a memorable time, memorable moment. And I was so intrigued, Brandon. I was just so thrilled. And, now when I look back, I'm thinking this was the only way I could explain my passion for it back then was to think of time being simultaneous and that being a future pull. In other words, future me was literally, if you will, sending information back in time saying, pay attention. That is significant.
Wow.
And we have to talk about a simultaneous time in a moment, and so I did a past life regression. I regressed myself, and I experienced something quite profound as a 13-year-old. I saw my spirit leave at the end of the body. I recognized that there is no such thing as death. My soul transitioned. There was such a beautiful life. Light-filled moment, and so can you imagine at 13 not only learning that there is no death, or the fear of death doesn't really hold true, but also learning what my purpose is, right? Because I very clearly saw what are my lessons in this lifetime, what I need to focus on. And so there I was, and so life kept going, and it was not until years later when I was already working as an attorney, living in New York City, having gone through the different transitions of life by then, that I rediscovered past life regression. And the reason why I came back into my life is because I had a physical condition that it was a TMJ problem. And so
that's like with the jaw, right?
Yes. It was an inflammation of the muscles of in my mouth that was creating a whole lot of imbalance and pain, severe pain. And so here's what, after a whole year of trying to heal this and manage it, nothing was changing. Here is what my dentist suggested. He said to me, I'm literally out of options, but I can give you the last two things we can think of. And one is for you to learn to live with intense chronic pain for the rest of your life.
Wow.
Or the other, right? I was like, no.
What's option two?
Yes, exactly. Or the other option, listen what he offered. He offered that we break my jaw and then reattach it back with wires, hoping that the breaking of the jaw is going to fix the muscle inflammation of the jaw. And that logically did not sound right. I didn't get it. Why would you break one thing to fix another, right?
Right.
And so I walked out of his office literally desperate, because keep in mind, I have been paying for the best possible care out of pocket. I was not even using insurance. So that was a very costly year.
Right.
It was so emotionally drained. Physically, it was really impairing me. And so it was taking a huge toll on my life. And so I walked into my next appointment, which was my physical therapist appointment. And my physical therapist was so gleeful and cheerful and told me that he's going on a vacation to Hawaii with his wife. And I got so mad. I went from desperate to mad in a matter of seconds, because I was like, I want to go to Hawaii. I've never been to Hawaii. I'm practically paying for your vacation to Hawaii. And here I am. I'm still not healed. Right. And so in this moment, I said to myself, okay, there has to be a different way. I have to take matter in my own hands. And I remember the past life regression I did as a kid. And I found the practitioner very quickly. The first time around, nothing happened. So it's important for me to highlight this piece of my story for people, to tell them, don't come into past life regression with intense desperation and expectations, because, just like anything else, you're getting in your own way.
Right.
And but I stuck with it. I needed a solution, so I showed up a second time. I gave it a second try, and lo and behold, I experienced being this big, strong, physically strong man who was a slave. And he had the shackles around his wrists and his feet, and there was this big metal collar around his neck as well. And there was a divot, an imperfection in the welding of the collar, and that was exactly where the collar was. It was exactly the place it was painful in this life, is Mira, the main spot. And so I experienced a lot of emotions in that regression. I experienced intense feelings of powerlessness and being trapped, and, as that slave, not knowing which way to go. At the same time, feeling very grateful that my masters were keeping me alive by feeding me, right? And then my mind as mirror is judging and saying, why would you be grateful for somebody doing this to you, right? And just keeping you alive, right? And at the same, so a lot of emotions, right? A lot of emotions. And so I walked out of that session with a very brief experience, but intensely emotional, and so much cleared for me. I don't know what I realized or what I didn't, honestly. It was quite an emotional, cathartic experience. But here's the beauty of it. The next morning, I woke up and the pain was gone. It was completely gone. And so that really made me pay attention, right? From there on, I wanted to learn as much as I can, but more importantly, I wanted to regress everybody. I wanted to bring everybody to their past lives and tell them, this works. Let's try it on anything, whatever is going on for you. And so that's how the journey started. And from there on, my work has been growing extremely rapidly. I'm blessed in working with, I kid you not, so many people every day. My schedule is very busy. And so that has allowed me to grow tremendously in my ability to engineer consciousness and to help people truly become their best, right? Because that's really all we desire. We desire that sense of fulfillment, the ability to serve, the ability to love, to feel connected, to feel taken care of, and to feel that feeling of life is good.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. What a powerful experience. I mean, to not only it sounds to me, from every time I've heard of this sort of thing happening, it's like by reliving and releasing or processing the emotions of the past life and sort of, that is the thing that opens it up so that it can sort of move on. It's sort of like just by acknowledging it, it allows it to move on. Is that your assessment of why it was just gone the next morning?
Most definitely. And also there's another piece to this. Whenever people connect with other lifetimes, whether they're future lives or past lives or parallel now lives, because those exist as well, they are always connecting with lifetimes where their soul is working through the same issues. And so think of I don't know, let's think of a cake or a wheel, and in other words, a circular shape, and think of a problem standing in the middle, being put in the center of this wheel. And so every point on the outside of this circle that looks towards the middle has a different perspective, right? A different point of view. And so imagine the central point being the question of love. So a soul is choosing to expand into its mastery, into its ability to mold a reality and to use the mental energy. In other words, what we usually say is, I'm here to learn lessons. is the question of love being put right there in the center. However, we don't learn about love just by being in a loving relationship, right? That's beautiful and ideal. But think how much we learn also about the question of love by being abandoned as children, or us abandoning as adults and loving relationships. How about having daddy issues? Or how about being committed and devoted to a cause, right? Like loving a cause and standing up for that cause. In other words, there are many different ways to experience the central theme, and that's why a soul doesn't really go about accomplishing it in a single life, because there are different ways, different perspectives, and so I don't want to imply in what I just said that it cannot be accomplished in a single life, right? But most of us are not so alert and aware on a daily basis that we are the creators of our experience, right? Think how many people are asleep at the wheel, meaning they don't recognize that they actually cause reality, right? That they're actually the cause of the outside of them. Instead, they think they're reacting to what's outside of them. And that's what I mean by being asleep at the wheel. And so that's the reason why we keep on reincarnating, so that we can hopefully eventually realize, wait a minute, I have much more impact here than what I've been telling myself. And that's really the reason why we keep on reincarnating. And so what I just described to you with so many words is the notion of karma. And I don't think of karma as the idea of punishment, right? Because remember, time is not simultaneous. Time is right now. It's the spacious present. Everything is unfolding right now. And so what that means is that past lives, future lives, present lives are all unfolding right now. Right. And so if everything is unfolding right now, what that means is that there's really no cause and effect. How could there be cause and effect if everything is simultaneous? So what that means is that in the present now moment, we can literally impact reality through all channels of time, if you will, right, in all directions, as we think of them in a linear mindset. And so because of that, I never explain to people that their past life trouble is the cause and the reason why in their present lifetime their life is messed up, right? That is not the case. So you would never hear me say to someone, let's see, how did you do badly in a past life so you know how to fix it? No, it's not about that at all. We really use past life regression so that we can understand even more clearly the question we're examining and how we've done it in other lifetimes, so we can do it even better right now.
I really love that perspective. It's like, what you just shared. It's like, from this now moment, you can take proactive steps energetically that will ripple out and affect everything, right? It'll ripple out and affect your, and you hear this concept sometimes of changing the past, right? Or, I have an ex-partner who had a really powerful past life regression where she was basically there for a version of herself in the past. When that version of herself died, her current self was there waiting to help her transition, in which case it changed the trajectory of that transition for her soul. So it's really an interesting thought that, from this, it always comes back to from this moment, all the power that's where your power lies, right? And there's obviously correlations between other parallel past, depending from the vantage point you're looking at it, whether you call it I always say your 5th birthday party is happening on another channel. You're just not tuned into it right now, right? So these linearly, it may appear to be past from the grand view, the ultimate perspective. It's all now, right? It's all happening. And it's a fascinating thing to think, okay, yeah, there's correlation between you and the slave, but it's sort of like you still in different ways processing the same energy.
So I love that you just brought this up. I would love to tie it together. So
Please.
What was happening in the life of Mira at that time when she had the TMJ condition, meaning me, but we're talking about back then, was
Past
that
Mira.
I was experiencing a very similar situation, even though, you would say, how were you a slave? So there I was working in a very prestigious position in a very prestigious law firm, working with publicly traded companies, taking companies public on the New York Stock Exchange, on NASDAQ, working with board of directors, doing really, really high level work in terms of legal work, and and being very beautifully compensated. I was at the top of the food chain in terms of what my peers were making anywhere in the world, not just in New York City, right? And so I was truly living the dream, right? Living in one of the most dynamic cities in the world, and so all of it seemed to be perfect on the surface. Yet within me, I was feeling trapped. I was working 60 to 80 hours a week, which meant that there was no room whatsoever for anything other than sleeping and going back to work, right? And work was intensely intense. And also, even though I was an excellent attorney, my heart wasn't into it. It wasn't my soul's calling. It wasn't my soul's mission. So I was much like the slave. I was grateful these people were keeping me alive by paying for my rent and my student loans. But at the same time, I was feeling very much trapped and unable to better my life and unable to speak up and better my life. And there was a situation that was definitely reflecting that. And so here's what happened. I came out of the regression, and a few days later, I don't think I correlated it back then, but it definitely dawned on me eventually that, wait a minute, I can get another job, for crying out loud, right? I can improve my life. I can speak up. I can make things better. And that's really what this learning of my own power to create my life, to focus on changing my destiny, the ability to make things different, is literally what not only emotionally opened up as I had the cathartic experience, but then actually bettered my future. And because of that realization, I'm here today, right? That's why I tell people, oh my God, the whole world needs to do past life regression, right? It's such a powerful tool for unlocking and understanding. And the beauty of it is that it works on anything, literally. Any problem anybody has ever brought, we've been able to work through it.
Wow. So how does... thank you for sharing that. That's very, very insightful. And it's just like reflections of the same thing that wants to be processed, right? And I'm sure I'm assuming you would say, since you sort of released yourself from the chains in this life, it's and in future, linearly speaking, future lives, it's not really a lesson that's necessary for you anymore. Is that what you find when you sort of peer into the future?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with me, but also what happens with everyone. Because think about it. Once we complete a journey, we're ready for the next adventure, right? We're like, okay, that was amazing. That was wonderful. I have amazing memories. I learned, I explored, I expanded, but now let's go play again. And so that's really what happens on the soul level too. The moment we're complete with a theme, I prefer the word theme versus a lesson, because like I was saying to you, lesson sort of implies, in my mind, I don't mean everybody in my mind, but implies that kind of judgment of somehow you're not perfect. Somehow you're here to repent and get better. And no,
Right.
I think we're already perfect. It's just that we're literally learning how to expand and create and grow on a moment to moment basis in a ever more exciting and intriguing ways.
I love that.
And so the moment we're done with one journey, with one theme, we say, okay, let's play again. What should we make the next thing?
Right. I love that. Yeah, it's this idea, that if you're going to expand, you're going to, yes, it doesn't, it's like, growing pains as a child. It maybe is painful at times and challenging, but necessary. Smooth seas never made for a skilled sailor, and your soul wants to be a skilled sailor. So there's going to be those parts, those themes that, sort of, the no pain, no gain kind of perspective. And I think that's a part of what we all signed up for. So there's no victim
Absolutely.
associated with it. It's something that was sort of walked into. And I know that's something that's really challenging for a lot of people. They feel victimized. And, I think it's one of the most controversial things that I always draw attention back to is that, and I'm curious if you would agree, that we've all sort of orchestrated the journeys that we take in 3D reality.
Yeah, I believe that, on a soul level, before we dive in, we kind of get together and we say, okay, well, how about if we weave this stage? How about if we set up these possibilities? And so we choose our family, we choose the socioeconomic background the family has, right? The stage, if you will. And then from then on, we set up potentials, possibilities for where we can go. However, if we had executed it all, in other words, if we have planned it down to every minute detail, there will be no free will, right? There will be no freedom to actually really grow and intuitively expand in the moment and create and learn from our creations. Because think about it. If we're right here on Earth, and if we knew that it's all pretend, right? It's a big hypnotic trance. And if we knew that the walls of our home don't really exist, they're just, an energy construct, a camouflage. And if we knew that, wait another 5 minutes and you'll be home on the soul plane, how many of us are really going to give it a good effort, right? Whatever. Let's just sit and eat peanuts. I don't know, or oranges,
bonbons,
right?
in my case.
Even better. And so we wouldn't really, we wouldn't take it serious. However, that's really the purpose of suffering, right? Do you see the tie-in? In other words, as we create constructs that are unfortunate and painful and sad, and we look back and we say, damn it, sorry to say that. I hope we can say damn it on your podcast. I really got into it. And so, when we can say, did I really do that? What was I thinking? I should have known better, right? All of a sudden we say, and I learned, there it is. There it is. And so that's the point of suffering, right? The point of suffering is not so that it purifies our soul. No. It's really for the purpose of teaching us to not suffer again, right? So that the next time around, I'm much more conscious and I use my intense creative power to create from joy and gratitude, to know that I'm always taken care of and supported, and that nature is not competition, but nature is cooperation. That when I make your wildest dreams come true, you're of course making my wildest dreams come true, because we're all one, right? Like, this is really the powerful way of creating experiences. And so a person who comes and says, wait a minute, Mira, are you really serious that suffering has no value? That the point of suffering is to teach us not to suffer. My answer is absolutely. There are no rewards for people who are murders, in other words, the people who carry the cross and bear the cross and say, I'm going to play small and I'm going to keep things, I'm going to sacrifice for you. Because what we're really saying is, when we sacrifice, we're saying my life has no value. I threw it away because I wanted this for you. But what we do in turn is we actually guilt people into playing small and living smaller lives, so they repay us for the sacrifices they experienced. Is this making sense?
Yes, it makes me think of, speaking of Dr. Dyer, I remember him talking about you can't be poor enough to help poor people. You can't be sick enough to help sick people. And it's something that I think we got to be really careful, especially as we're really empathic, and really love-centered. And, if we're at a point in our journey where we're very love-centered and, sort of like, okay, I can't thrive if someone else isn't thriving. And that's actually the opposite of what life is calling for in order to help to free up, all the suffering that's happening.
So each one of us is that organizing principle, organizing force in our lives, where we up-level everybody else by up-leveling ourselves. So it's not about me slowing down so that you don't feel hurt that I'm big and strong and powerful, right? Because sometimes women say to one another, I'm such a strong and powerful woman that men cannot handle me, right? I had that conversation with girlfriends last night at dinner. And it's not about that at all. You be strong, but also expect your man to be strong as well, right? Give him the freedom to be his greatest as well. Because telepathy always operates, always. And so what that means is, what we put out, we get back. If I expect you to mess up and to play below your excellence and below your potential, you hear me. You always meet my expectations.
Yep. Yeah, that is so true. It's like be really mindful of what you're thinking and expecting, and when you sort of, the way I view it is everyone is a prop in my own private movie, and they're showing up in some way, shape, or form, that reflect how I've created them, and vice versa. I'm a prop in your movie, and it just an extension of your consciousness that sort of looks and sounds and sort of this avatar, this flavor, if you will, and so I think it's always so crucial to really analyze what it is that how we're creating people to show up in our world, and always taking it as feedback. If things are showing up in a way that are not in alignment with what we want to see more of, it's like, okay, where am I contributing to this, is what I always self-examine and ask.
Where is I'm so loving this conversation, and please forgive me. I want it to be even more of a conversation. Where is your own learning and joy and growth right now? Like you with your way of service in the world, you as a man, you as a person, right? Like what is the theme that you're working through right now?
That's a great question, and I love that you turned the question on me, which is wonderful. So my growth edge right now is really, I know I'm being called to hold more, and to, this show has reached a lot of people and has had a beautiful ripple of impact in the world, and I'm in the process of sort of expanding it into, my new show that we talked a little bit about earlier, and that I hope that you'll be visiting and a guest on, Optimistic. And so with that, there's a lot of greater financial commitment, greater energetic commitment, calling for more focus, calling for more sort of meeting that challenge, that growth edge for me. That is not always. I mean, this whole year has been that for me. It's been like, okay, putting in the time, effort, and energy to really birth it into the world in a way that I feel good about. And it hasn't always been easy, but that's definitely where I'm most focused, is like, okay, how do I sort of become the next greatest and greatest version of myself and move into that new chapter? And, oftentimes with new chapters, I think they're a little wobbly at first, and you're kind of getting your sea legs, if you will. And, maybe I always say if it excites you and it scares you, it's probably for you. And so as we sort of like see that thing that scares us, and it's even not playing small, and in realizing like that you are worthy to play an expanded role and to have more influence or to have more of a voice in the world. And so, that's my growth edge currently.
This is so amazing to hear the passion that you speak with, honestly, because this is, isn't it interesting how everybody who comes to work with me, their biggest question always is, how am I here to serve and contribute? What is my purpose?
Right.
I know that I'm here to do and to be and to impact, and I want to do it in the most authentic and powerful way.
Right.
And so I always tell people, your purpose is really twofold, and we already spoke about the one expression of that purpose, right? One expression of that purpose is, as we show up in our life, we're to show up mindful of how we're doing anything and everything, right? And we're here, let me say it very clearly. So the first answer to what is our purpose is that we're here to be ourselves. In other words, we were not an afterthought in the creation, when the divine created us. We were wanted and desired. Our gifts and talents were seen and known and celebrated, right? That's why we were created. So we're truly here to be ourselves to the best of our abilities. And so that's really our first purpose. Be yourself, because as you are yourself, as you're using your gifts and talents, that's really you're living your purpose, right? And the second point that we already touched upon was to learn to use the mental energy, how to mold our psyche and our environment by being very intentional with our mental energy, with our thoughts, with our emotions, with our expectations. And so as we start living our purpose is always the path of our greatest growth, right? The greatest challenges is where our greatest growth is. And so that's why I'm so thrilled to hear you say that you're showing up in an even bigger way of service to your own soul, service to your own purpose, service to everyone, because that means that you're up leveling so many more people, right? And I am so thrilled that we're able to touch upon this and that you shared so openly. Thank you. Because this is really what the call, right? This is the fulfillment. This is why we are all here, to hear the call of our soul and to answer it, but to answer it not just with, maybe possibly next year, but right now, right? To be my greatest right now.
Yes, I love that. I love how you put that as well, that, no one is an afterthought of the divine. Like, it's all, I always put it as, if you could really understand and see and feel what the universe, your higher self, God, source, whatever you want to call it, had to go through in order for you to be here and now hearing this broadcast. Like, the amount of choice points, the great grandmother that went left instead of right, at that crucial moment in her journey, to the amounts of sacrifice and challenge that was navigated in order for you, all of us, to be the culmination of everything that the universe has to offer in this now. The absolute pinnacle of evolution is each and every person hearing this. And, the likelihood of you being here and the statistical improbability of it all coming to pass. I mean, I can look back to my grandfather. Forget about going back 5,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years. My grandfather was at Pearl Harbor and jumped ship and swam and survived. Had he not, I wouldn't be here. Like, what about his grandfather? What did he survive or go through? Or the one before that, or the one before that, or the one before that? Like, so much happened in order for us to be here. And if that doesn't make you feel worthy, then I don't know what will, because as you just put so eloquently, we are not an afterthought. Actually, the opposite. You are the pinnacle of everything the universe has to offer to lead us into the future.
I'm so in agreement with you, and I have such an amazing story to tell you.
Ooh, story time. I like stories. yes, please.
Yes. So years ago, when I did my first past life regression with Wayne Dyer, he was so taken by it that he immediately shared his experience with his daughter. And so I was able to work with his daughter, Serena, and she experienced herself as a keeper of a plane where souls come through on their way to their human existence.
Oh,
and
wow.
on this plane, they were simply explained, they were choosing their personality, their character.
Oh, wow.
And their human individual traits. And so she was saying to me that souls come to her plane through these different openings, portals, if you will, channels. And
right.
one of those channels was for newly created souls. And I was so intrigued by that. So I said to her, well, can we go backwards through this channel and see how souls are created? And she said, of course. And so there we go. And she describes to me that there are many different planes throughout the multiverse where souls are created. It's not just, one place for the entire multiverse and so and she described to me that within all that is, all of a sudden there's a desire for new expression, a desire for growth, a new way of being, a new way of creating, a new perspective, a new development, a new line of development. Right. And all of a sudden, all that is recognizes within itself that it's some of what it could be. It's not all that is anymore, because this desire is now making it recognize there is a missing piece. There is a opportunity for growth. And so that is the signal that is being sent into this plane of existence for the creation of the new soul. And the soul comes into being through light and intention. And so there it is. Our soul is born. And so when I heard this story, I was blown away, honestly, because I thought to myself, gosh, why do we play this forgetfulness game where we're where we really believe ourselves that we're not enough, right? That somehow I'm less than, somehow I was put from spare parts. Somehow everybody is better than me. Because, the divine doesn't see us that way at all. In fact, our very existence, the very fact that I'm here in this human body, is that I exist, is all the proof that I need that I'm enough. Because otherwise, the divine would not have ever created me, right? Because if it didn't see my worth and my value, if I wasn't wanted, I wouldn't exist. And so that's such a simple rebuttal, yet so quite profound to the question of, am I enough? Am I worthy? And the answer is absolutely. So for those of our listeners who have struggled with stories from our childhood or our love partners or friends, I want to ask you to not put your worth and your value and your lovability on people, on those people, on how they treated you. Please put your worth and your value on the divine loving you, on you being seen as the greatest thing ever. And I have to tell you, my mom has this sweet thing. She has always, ever since, forever, she has been calling me, my sister, and every other child that comes across her. She says to everyone, "You're God's favorite child. You're God's favorite child." Right? Isn't that the sweetest? And
it is the sweetest.
But yet it's so true. It's so true. Each one of us is God's favorite child.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And what comes to mind with me, and I guess this goes down a whole different rabbit hole, but I feel like there's some misconstrued misconstrued information, misinterpreted information pertaining to, the character, certainly in Western society of, Jesus Christ, this God's son, right? And I always am like, well, we're all God's children. And that's actually what, Jesus was teaching, well, I and the Father are one. We are all one. You will do greater things than I. Therefore, he wanted to wash people's feet. And, and I think, without going deep down the rabbit hole of, religious debate, I think, there's a lot of misinterpretation in, sort of putting this character on a pedestal because they were, at a point in their own evolutionary journey where they had a profound impact. But we all have that latent potentiality within us, and I think that's actually what this character was teaching. And, Jesus, I believe, was man. Christ is a state of consciousness that comes back, that will come back even with a greater impact, which I believe is happening now. I think, he was teaching the same things we're talking about here and now. And so, I offer that up as something to consider as you think about your own worth and this beautiful thing that your mother would say, God's favorite child. It's like we are all one in different bio bodysuits and therefore all God's favorite children, from the ultimate perspective, I believe.
I had a very interesting conversation one time with Wayne Dyer. So I love how much we've been mentioning his name, by the way.
Me too. I feel such a connection to him.
Right?
And I one of my greatest compliments I ever had was from my friend who runs the Psychic Teachers podcast, and she was like, I forget exactly how she put it, but she basically, was talking about my future and, sort of the impact that I would have. And she referenced, made a reference to Wayne Dyer and like a comparison in some way. And to me, that was like the greatest compliment because I have just loved and honored his work. So I'm really glad that he's coming up a lot too.
Me too. And gosh, this is making me now want to tell you two things. So I want to ask you to do something. So I want to ask you to do something in the name of what she was seeing as a potential of your ability to impact. So one of the things, I believe I mentioned it as we began, but it has been one of the most powerful lessons Wayne has taught me, and it's the power of the voice, right? Remember, this is something, well, I shouldn't say remember. I should say remember Mira, because I have experienced lifetimes where clients of mine have told me stories of how the ancient Egyptians would use sound to actually build the pyramids and use sound to build structures that last centuries, or bring in irrigation and water from into desert places from far away spaces simply by sound. And so I want to go back to what you were saying. And so one of the most beautiful and important lessons that Wayne has taught me has been the power of voice, because he always used to say to me, I have a big and powerful voice. And so I have taken on teaching all my clients who have thyroid issues, jaw conditions and problems, right? Or simply looking to live their purpose in a bigger way, to remind them of this lesson and tell them, please repeat to yourself and affirm to yourself what Wayne Dyer was saying about himself and to himself all the time. I have a big and powerful voice. So that's what I wanted to share. And so going back to the other Wayne Dyer story, because you were speaking about Jesus Christ. And so there we're talking about God, right? And so at that time, Wayne was teaching about saying, I am God, right? The power of the I am, the statement, I am. And I was so bashful and I felt so uncomfortable and so uneasy with the statement of saying, I am God. It felt like a blasphemy, honestly. It felt like, who am I, right? I felt so small and so insignificant compared to this greater power. That was my thinking back then. Sure. And he said to me, well, can you replace the word God with love? Can you say I am love? And I said, absolutely. I have no
Sure.
problem with that. And he said, well,
Right.
there it is. How is
And-
one different than the other?
Right.
And so that was another, he has been such a magnificent mentor in my life. And that was another piece that he brought to me in terms of just claim what you are. You are love. You
Right.
are that.
Yes, I love that. That is such a wonderful way to reframe it. I'd never heard that, heard him talk on it in that way. I've heard him talk about, the power of I am and all of that, and I've never, reframing it as, God is such a charged word, and there's so much, tied to it from so many perspectives and vantage points, and fear associated with it, and us not feeling worthy, and for me, when you think about it, it's like what God is, even as the Bible refers to, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. It is like, what would be external of God? Like God. When you think of God, it's the all pervasive force of that. Everything is held within the container of. Okay, so if you exist, what are you? Right? Like it's we can see it physically. We can see that we're made of the same exact stuff physically. We're made of stars that lived a whole lifetime, as young starhood to teenage years to old age to death to then exploding and reforming, and out of the ground came me and you now speaking. It's like it's all the same stuff physically. It's all the same stuff spiritually. It seems like the very natural progression of that. And so for me, it's like, I always will put to people who are very challenged by like that. Oh, okay. So if we're not God, then what you're saying is there's something that God is not, something external of the all. And it sort of helps to frame it in a way I feel that can get people to say, okay, well, that sort of makes sense. And then you just tie it and replace the word with, God is love, right? And if you can say and resonate with the idea that you are love, there you have, attribution, that, 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3 equals 1. And it's quite the journey that we are of re-remembering and rediscovering, the truth of who and what we are, I believe.
So very true. Yes. I'm so enjoying our conversation.
Likewise. And, I would like to take the conversation down the path for a minute, if you will, of this idea of future lives. And, you hear a lot about past lives. You don't hear as much about future lives. And of course, if they're all happening in parallel nows, once again, if we're talking about future lives, we're really talking about future in a linear sense. And although from another, I always put it like this, Mira, it's like relative truths. So from one perspective, you and I are separate. From another, you and I are one. Both are true. From what vantage point are we speaking? So from one vantage point, we have a past life happening, from linear speaking. From another vantage point, it's happening in now, right? On another channel, so to speak. And the same, I believe, with future lives. And if I'm understood you correctly up to this point, I think you tend to agree with that perspective. So I'm curious what your journey has been with exploring people's future lives, and how, just what, it's a fascinating thing, right? This is lying ahead of us linearly speaking. And what kind of, experiences have you, or stories have you brought back from the future?
I love guiding people through future lifetimes because, like you said, we even though most people in the spiritual community think of the idea of time being simultaneous as I get it, yeah, but most of us still don't necessarily consider the idea of a future life. So that's why I love guiding people through future lives, because just the normal way of thinking, the regular linear way of thinking, we're thinking the future, it hasn't happened yet.
Right.
And so I love weaving this into my work with people. And I want to share with you one of the sweetest stories I've heard of a future lifetime. It was an experience of a man who told me of a possible future where he lived on the outside of a busy city. And so the city was, tall buildings and so forth, and the walkways, rather than being for people to walk around, they were actually moving walkways and so forth. And he was describing to me that everyone was flying around in silent flying cars, and you just type in the destination into the dashboard and you sit back and the car takes you home. But here's where the interesting piece comes in. So he was describing to me that he was living in a house that was positioned in a tree. So people's consciousness has evolved so much that people didn't want to dig holes into the ground and disturb the earth anymore. They didn't want to cut trees down anymore. They wanted to see nature as a partner. And so people were living in tree houses. And his little flying silent car was parked in a little platform that was built on a tree, and he had his little house in the tree as well. And he was saying to me, at night, it's so romantic and so beautiful to look out through the window and see the neighboring tree and see my neighbor's house and their little lights there. And so that made me feel so good. It was such a feel good experience of the balance that in a possible future, because remember, it is a possible future, people have created with nature. Because nothing is set in stone, right? That's why we speak of the quantum field. That's why we speak of all potentials and all possibilities exist right now. And so what that means is going into the future, there are many potential futures. And so I'm rooting for a happy future, much like this one. And that's where I want to end up.
I love that. Yeah, I often put it like this, Mira. My sort of approach to describing how it works is I like to say our lives play out at the corner of free will and destiny. So it's destined in, based off of the whole concept that, okay, it's all happening in the eternal now and it's already out there, right? If you can think it up, God has been there, done that, and gotten the t-shirt, and what you can think up and what you can't. And it's free will because you get to determine which version from this moment forward that you step into. Right. So I remember my first intuitive reading, psychic reading, the woman said, I see you in a cold place like Chicago in business. Then she turned around and said, there's this whole other path in California in music. And a year later, I ended up forming a band and then meeting someone from California and here I am now. But before that, in that moment when I was in front of her, I was planning to move to Chicago and work in business with my uncle when I graduated college at that moment. So my jaw hit the floor thinking, oh my gosh, how does she know this? And then this alternative version is the one that actually came to pass. And the way I view it is both happened, right? Based off of, free will, you get to choose, which version of you from this moment forward. And of course, we want to experience the greatest and grandest version, the one that's the most rewarding. And no matter how improbable statistically or any of those things, if it's possible, Source and its infinite, resources and brilliant creative, essence can manifest and make it, have it come to pass. So, I believe our whole aim becomes, how do we be it to see it? How do we be it vibrationally so that we actually step into that version of reality? And it's sort of, as Bashar talks about this, how each moment we're literally stepping in and out of different potential realities with our vibration.
And I love that you're saying that we're stepping in and out of possible realities, because that's really how I am striving to live my life. I really strive to live my life from the timeless now, from this present now moment. And because you remember how earlier we spoke about the idea of there being no cause and effect. So the past will have the effect on me I'm willing to give it. And so if I choose to live from the place of timeless now, right here, right now, much like Ram Dass says, be here now.
Right.
It's really, that's really where my greatest power is, right? Because right now I have the ability to impact not only the present moment, but also the future as I'm setting up probabilities and potentials, but also the past. Because if time is simultaneous, that means that as I look back into the past, as I work with my issues, as I change my stories, as I change my past, I'm literally birthing new potentials in the past because that exists right now.
Right.
And so what I want to bring to people is this idea that our greatest freedom lies in our ability to think of time differently, not linearly. But if we
Right.
step outside of the linear understanding of time, we're literally able to mold our perception of stories and reality and experiences in a way that actually support us, in a way that actually allows us to be the master creators of our present existence.
I love that. I love that. Reframing how you think about time and pulling all the power back to this moment and in this concept that you can actually change the way the past went is just like, it's such a fascinating vantage point to navigate reality from.
Most certainly, right? And so fun, so fun. And with that comes so much more, right? Because that means that we have to step out of the commonly accepted official line of consciousness and beliefs and perceptions, and so that we truly allow ourselves to be unencumbered. But that's okay. That's the fun of the journey. That's really willing to see ourselves as even more powerful and even more impactful, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
so many of the official line of consciousness beliefs are not serving us, right? This is the way it is. This is how money is. This is how people are. This is right. No. Let's go back to I am in charge right now, and I get to choose which me, which world, which belief, and so forth.
Right, exactly. That's one of the things that I often say, Mira, is, one of my greatest and simplest gifts or talents is just making up really good stories about what is going on and what my life is, what it's supposed to. Tell a good story surrounding. If you have a challenge, instead of talking about how disempowering it was, find a spin to tell a story how it actually is serving you. And it's abracadabra, meaning the interpretation of that is I create as I speak, right? That's what it means. And so you're casting a spell with your words and beliefs. And so anytime there's something challenging that arises, it's like, why is this happening for me? That's the question. Then I'll create the story around it. And that becomes, as I speak, I create. And then all of a sudden it can go from something that's totally disempowering, that lump of coal, then you transmute it into the diamond that it's destined to become.
Ooh, you are a sorcerer. That was amazing. I love it. I love it. Love everything you said. I'm so on board with all of it. And isn't it so interesting? Just as you were saying, I paid attention to how you spoke the word spell, right? And I was thinking, of course, when we write things down, when we spell them, when we speak them, we are casting a spell. Thank you for making me see that connection. Amazing. You play a lot with words, don't you?
I love words. I love the term sorcerer, channeling source, right? And tapping into our source and learning to cast spells that serve us and empower us and everyone around us. It is such a fun game. It's such a fun way to navigate. And we are meant to be childlike. We are meant to be, one of the only Bible verses I ever, quote, and I quote it all the time, lest ye become like a child, child, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven. And that is here and now. We are in eternity right now. So wherever we are, this is heaven. This can be heaven or it could be hell based off of the spells that you're casting. And, just as the show I used to watch as a child, G.I. Joe cartoon as a little kid, at the end, they would always have the lesson and it would always be, and knowing is half the battle. And that's it. We know. Now that we know, we can start to reframe and recreate our reality in a way that, serves us. And knowing that all of the challenges that have led up to this point were happening for us and not to us. And they were, that we needed that contrast. And so instead of shaking our fist at it, we can now look back and say, thank you. Thank you for serving me and allowing me to have the contrast so that I can appreciate this next chapter in my journey that is going to be just the most rewarding, beautiful, phoenix rising from the ashes type of experience that so many of us, our souls long to have. And we had to have the proper setup in order for that to really transpire.
So very true. As I was listening to you right now, I was thinking you and I are definitely loving conversing with each other, right? It's just this enthusiasm, this like, oh my God, you see the world the same way. Me too. Amazing. And so I'm so hoping that our listeners are totally inspired by our enthusiasm and also feel that childlike play within themselves. And they're saying, oh, let me cast better spells today. Let me show up and let me play as a child, because isn't that the goal of it anyway? Pleasure, satisfaction, fulfillment, fun.
Yes. That is, it's all, as I like to put it, it's all happening for love, behind all of it. It's so that love can exist, and you can't know that which you are unless you know that which you are not. And the question is what part of it all do you want to experience next? If you've had enough of pain, separation, doubt, fear, struggle, then put it down, and choose and bless it and thank it for the wonderful contrast that it's provided. And now you are one with Source, and Source is all of these things. And the question is always, what part of it all do you want to experience next? That's always the question that's being put before you. And where our attention goes, energy flows, and we need to determine where we focus and what stories we're telling. And this is a wonderful story that's transpiring here today, and I'm so grateful for you coming and co-creating this with me. It is it's so much fun.
I had so much fun. Thank you for having me. It's been so beautiful and truly delightful.
Indeed. So what, for those who want to follow your work and perhaps connect with you, what is the best way to do that?
Oh, yes. Please connect with me anywhere you are, on social media or through my website. So the spelling of my name is with EY, Mira Kelley, EY. And so you can find me anywhere on social media under Mira Kelley, or you can just email me through my website so we can explore your own past, future, parallel lifetimes, the probabilities of your present life, and also truly empower you to your greatness, to tie it right back to what I started with, right?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So exciting. What is there anything, Mira, that I haven't asked you, or something that you feel called to share, something that maybe is exciting for you now that you would like to sort of leave the listeners with?
Yeah, I want to ask people, as you are listening to us, to take this phrase, live knowing, to heart. In other words, so live and create masterfully from that place of knowing, not only knowing your worth, not only knowing your value, not only knowing your ability to impact reality and how to do it from the present now moment, as we were speaking and teaching you earlier, but also with the certainty that it's already yours, right? That's why live knowing that it's already yours. So that's the phrase I want to share with people and give it to you.
Yes, that's such a powerful thing to leave them with. And it's really where all of my own personal power comes from, is that it's like knowing that you are, I am worthy. You know, I am as worthy as any soul ever has been or will be. And so are each and every one of you listening. It's like, it is my birthright to move into my, you know, my divine, you know, next greatest and grandest version of myself. It's like each one of us are like the prince and princess waking up in the castle as we remember this. And we've been dreaming that we're paupers, you know, and thank goodness for that dream, because it really makes, you know, the truth of what's happening, you know, mean something. And to, you know, without that contrast, it's very challenging. You know, it's why it's very challenging, I think, a lot of times for children, you know, who were born to a billionaire. You know what I mean? That's its own unique challenge. A lot of times we've dreamed of that sort of thing ourselves as like, whoa, he's so lucky that his dad's worth $1 billion. He's never had to struggle for anything in his life. And actually, I don't, you know, when you really understand, like, not having the perspective, everything being handed to you on a silver platter makes it really hard to appreciate anything, right? And so, you know, the fact that you've didn't have that trajectory out there listening, and you've went through the struggles and the hardships and the challenges, what a gift and blessing it actually is, so that now when you can remember who and what you actually are, and the worth and the inheritance that is due to you when you're ready to claim it, it really is going to be appreciated in the way it deserves to be.
Oh, so beautifully said. Yes, so true.
Well, Mira, this has been so much fun, and I am really looking forward to, especially since we're like neighbors, having you here on Optimistic at some point. We'll have to talk about that. I think that would be a really, really fun episode as well, to go even further down this rabbit hole. And I do have one last question for you as we wind down here, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Mira Kelley?
Love, laughter, and joy.
And so it is. Mira, thank you for bringing love, laughter, and joy to all of the listeners today, to myself. It has been such a joy. Until next time, all of you out there listening, journey well. Love you all so, so much.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
And if you're feeling the call to come for a week retreat style Mystic Manor immersion, remember to go now and book your time to speak with me directly about stepping into the optimistic vortex at calendly.com/talk with Brandon while there are still spots left. Otherwise, I look forward to co-creating magic with you at the Mystic Manor.